So this is a moving graphical floor at the Subaru exhibit. Subaru really went all out as they usually do. They had a large exhibit. It was very custom. It was very experiential and cool. And this is possibly the dizziest I've ever felt. And here we have our friend Pete demonstrating how to spin out of control on the Subaru rally experience. This was a very difficult game, or simulation rather. Wheel does have realistic feedback to a degree, but you really have to do this course very, very slowly because you get out of control very, very rapidly, as you can see. It was really hard to go through. I'm told that the trick is to basically stay in first and second gear and go really slowly the whole time. Let's zoom in a bit and then we'll move on and we'll go through the rest of the show. It was an interesting show. We went on the second press day, which is also industry day, but some manufacturers didn't participate, some participated but cut their budget quite a bit, and nobody was giving out anything for free other than plastic cowboy hats, which I think is a first. No coffee, no water, no food. Plenty of good food outside at the halal cart, but so here's a quick look around the Kia exhibit. You can see the flashing Kia EV6 sign this way. Pretty cool. Taking a quick spin through the Honda exhibit, going back to Kia from the other side. And there is the Toyota sponsored sports festival right in the center for reasons I do not quite understand. Here's a dizzying little spin through another section of show. You can see Tom the photographer at the end. There's some painted up Lexuses, Hyundais. And downstairs we go to the tuner area. But we'll be heading right back upstairs in just a moment as I guide you through some slides. And I'm going to be taking you on a little tour through the 2024 New York Auto Show. So at the opening, as almost always, is Ford's a new special edition Mustang. It will set you back an awful lot of money. This is really just about the most Mustang that you can get. But this is a close-up of the suspension of this rather special vehicle. It is pretty well modified beyond an ordinary Mustang GT. Well, a reflective paint job. On a Bronco, you might notice that the wheels and the stripes very definitely catch the headlight. They're like the safety strips. They're pretty amazing. You will definitely find your car in a parking lot at night. A stripe package like this was used on a Ford back in the 70s. Moving on, I just wanted to photograph the other side because Nissan really went all out too with their displays. And you see that they hung their own big light square. But this is actually quite a nice display. Nissan's in some trouble now trying to move their cars rather desperately, so it made sense for them to spend on marketing. Stellantis, which also has some issues moving cars right now, has decided that they won't market as much, which is an interesting choice. All the way in the back corner, which is what I was really trying to focus on, is a Chevrolet corner, and that used to be the Chrysler and Dodge corner. So this is a relatively new Chevy pickup. It's a ZR2. We're now in the Chevy corner that used to be the Dodge and Chrysler corner. So this, as you see, is the Equinox Active. This is a before I retouch. This is an after I retouch a little. It is a Chevy Silverado electric pickup. I was in one of these. It's comfortable. It's like an ordinary pickup. I often take two pictures in case I shake. Here is an overview of Chevrolet going from about halfway through. They had a very long, deep display. For public days, they'll probably move things around quite a bit and add more displays and have more room for people. This was one of the press days. This is part of a Lamborghini, so let's head back out for a second. Here's the Lamborghini. They had one car. Lamborghini Manhattan is presumably the dealer that owns the car and allowed it to be used. It is fenced off even from media, which actually, come to think of it, might be a good idea. It is the Urus, I don't know how to actually pronounce it. I've seen it. It is a supercar for sure. And just take a look again at these brakes. They use the bright fluorescent green color that really is that bright. Drilled rotors for heat dissipation, and I think that they chose that color green because Dodge and others have used the Brembo red for so long. Not much to say. It's a bunch of Kias. They have a huge section, as did Hyundai. There's really plenty of room this year at the New York Auto Show, even though they went from 2 floors to 1 floor in terms of show cars. It used to be only cars on top, only trucks on bottom. Here's Kia again. Incidentally, let me go back a little bit. You notice those boxes up there. Bringing in your own lights is very expensive, and getting them installed and hooked up and all that, it is quite pricey. Pretty much all the automakers other than Ford economized this year by using the standard lighting, and in some cases adding like these little overhead light boxes. This was my favorite driving experience, I think. The EV6 GT driving experience, powered by Windows, which might be why it's not actually working right now. Here's a close-up in case I'm wrong and it's actually powered by something else, but regardless, it ain't working. And so I found it highly amusing to see these guys playing around in what looks like File Explorer. Let's see, random Kia, and this is out here because I thought I could get a good shot of it. Anyway, I like the color on this one. I miss having different colors, so there it is. Honda really just had a bunch of cars on a white carpet. I thought this was interesting because they just left this huge aisle pretty much. Here is the Buick and GMC corner, and on the right is Polestar, and in all the way in the back you can barely see Volvo all the way in that back corner, and there's Audi. But if the crowds are really, really thick getting to the Volvos beyond the Polestars and the Audis, then don't worry because you got plenty of aisleway for them to walk on. Here's a shot down Hyundai row. On the right are some highly decorated Lexuses. Lexus had a thing, big sign up saying, "Why do we race?" And Tom said, "Because we've got tons of money." Genesis had these 3 bright orange cars. I really like the color. They stand out, unless you're in a construction zone, in which case they might get lost. Here's the Toyota area, and this is where they kept the car. Again, this might all change for public days, but it was an interesting design choice. Here's more Toyota area. They kept the trucks separate. They're flying a great big American flag, although they're not an American company. They do have a lot of factories here. They try to have one in every state so that they can wield some control over Congress and avoid ever being regulated more heavily. And we've got this beautiful Packard here. As you might have noticed, it was owned by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, which is a great claim to fame, but it is a great car otherwise, except that somebody shoved in a Chevy V8 and a Chevy automatic, told by the man who owns one, as Packard's ad campaign used to say, "Ask the man who owns one." So I did, and he said that real Packard has no trouble holding its own and really should keep its original engine if at all possible. Here's the interior of the car. You can see the spotlight there. It wasn't a police car, but it has an extra spotlight. It was a luxury car. Here is a picture of the Jeep off-road trail from a Jeep. Here is a picture of the screen that you see in the Jeep as you go through with the pitch and roll of the off-road screen. Here we are, just a little bit pitched. We were actually more pitched before, but I was having some camera trouble. The main one was I was trying to shoot video and forgot how you do it. Here we are coming down off of one. That Grand Cherokee that you see getting ready to go up that steep hill is not actually doing it. It's just there to block it during the rain. But apparently they're serious about having Grand Cherokees and Wagoneers going over all these obstacles, which is pretty impressive. Returning again through the rain. Pretty cool looking thing. I don't know how hard it is to get over that particular obstacle. About those 4 big green tubes, those are actually covers for massive concrete tubes that I have no idea what they're for, but they're there. So Jeep covers them up and makes them into their own. So one of these shots, I was trying to get a picture of the underside. They basically had these 3 vehicles, a couple of Wranglers and a Gladiator, going through most of the time at fairly high rate of speed when nobody from the media was actually in them. So here they're going around and around, and I was trying to get just the right picture, and I was really trying to get the underside of one of these. And I finally posted one on, here we go. I think this is the one I posted on Snowpower to show you what the underside looks like while it's going over an obstacle. So there they go, bye-bye. At some point I'll run out of these, and then we'll go back inside. Oh, this is an interesting one because you can see just how much articulation these things have. All four wheels on the ground as it goes over that at all times. No wheels in the air. So you get maximum traction that way, as opposed to relying on fancy devices like traction control. And there you see again the wheels are coming out. That's the solid axles, which can have more articulation than the independent suspension usually. These are Robert Downey Jr.'s dream cars. You can win one of them. I don't know why you'd really want to. Okay, now we have the Plymouth police cars here. And the New York Police Department supposedly standardized on Plymouth for a long time because one detective was driving his own Plymouth during a chase scene that was copied in The French Connection, the movie The French Connection. And he essentially caught up with the criminals not because he had a more powerful car, but because his car stayed in one piece while the criminal's car literally disintegrated going over city streets. And the city, which had been having some reliability and durability issues with its cars until up to that time, bought a bunch of Plymouths and they never looked back. They stayed pretty much all Plymouth with some Dodges, same car, up to 1989, which is the last year that they made the Plymouth Grand Fury that you see here and the Dodge Diplomat. And then they kept them as long as they could before moving on to the Impalas that you see. The first one being the one right behind it, and then the Jelly Bean ones that you see off to the right. And then when GM stopped making Impalas, they had to go over to the Fords, and they didn't stay with them as long as you'd think. They moved on to basically a range of civilian cars, because they figured that, I think that the assumption that Mike Bloomberg made was that if you have an efficient hybrid car, you're not, most of the, just to clarify, most of the Diplomats and Grand Furies that they bought were slant sixes, so they weren't all that fast. A modern hybrid will probably outrace for those guys pretty easily. So you can't outrace Motorola, is the saying. They rely on the radio to call other units over. So I think that the belief, which appears to have been borne out, was that the savings on fuel overcome any extra expenses on shock absorbers, wheels, and such. Another picture of the same car. I was trying to make sure I got it. I think I was also, if you look at the patterns of the spotlights and the glare in the windshield, you can see I was making slight changes to the polarizing filter. Close-up of the grille, I don't know what I was really hoping to achieve with that. This is a bit better. Funny thing is that underneath these were basically Plymouth Volaris. They were the Diplomat and Grand Fury were the upscale version of the Volare, and then they dropped the Volare, so the police drove the upscale cars that replaced them. You can see that they have the holes drilled out. This is another Fury. It's not a Grand Fury, it's just a plain old Fury. And this was a much older police car that they used before that. You notice the difference in color schemes. We'll go back for a second. This is the dark blue. Off to the right, that transit police car has the actual paint color that's usually associated with New York police cars, or green and black. This was New York police colors for many, many, many years. And you'll see a few of these as I tried to hold the camera steady in this particularly dark location. Here I did it. Both Dodge Chargers with a motorcycle in between. Not sure why they're different colors. Here were just some vehicles I thought were interesting. There's the Hook and Ladder old school bus, a nice old within city bus. And this, you know, is not original equipment because the bus fares were not $275 when this bus was in service. Here's an unexplained Moab Gladiator. No idea whose it was, why it was there, other than this one plaque in the wall saying Overland Park. Here's my attempt to capture the Lucid Air. This really required a better camera than I had. Here's a picture of one of the drive motors. They're really very clever. They're very light and they're engineered for maximum heat dissipation. They were trying to have the least possible wind drag and the least possible heat so that they could have a very efficient battery, very efficient motor, and they succeeded. There was a lot of engineering that went into these. Excuse me, the finger was resting on this a bit too much. The Lucid is really an incredibly well-designed car, and if you look at the materials, they're all kind of unique. It was designed in California, and they wanted to make it look that way, so they used unique textures. That is real wood. They used an open-pore wood, and Maserati and Fiat, and Fiat tried to do this with the Chrysler 300 at one point, and it ended up looking like 1970s plastic wood grain. This is really a much nicer implementation. It looks just beautiful in person and not like all other cars. Here's the interior. The dashboard is wider than most, and then you have the little slab lying down. It's a neater, more purposeful design than you normally see. And again, the materials are unusual. It's just a look that has all the same stuff in roughly the same place so that it's predictable, but it's just nicer to look at, and it's really a very impressive design that they came up with. Here it is photographing from the back seat, and there's a little thing from the back seat. The seat controls, pretty conventional in terms of location. Here is the front trunk. Here is the best Lucid logo that I was able to photograph. By the way, these Lucid Airs, here's a better one. These Lucid Airs have a coefficient of drag of 0.197. For reference, a Neon was about 0.28, and the Plymouth Superbird was 0.28. 0.197 is crazy efficient. So here's the battery again. It's a small battery by many standards, and it's a light battery, but the Lucid Air has a really good range because it's just so efficient. Here I was trying to get the depth of the trunk. I'm not sure if I got it or not. It's really not a large car, but it has a lot of interior space. It's very well packaged. So here we are downstairs in an odd room with a stage and a bunch of tuner cars. We weren't quite sure what this was all about. We did photograph the lone Durango looking sad and lonely in the corner. You might notice a ProMaster van that had absolutely no distinguishing characteristics on the outside there. And this is the row of a few Mopars, 1, 2, 3, 4. And this was pretty much it, except for one charger at the end. Here's one of the hats that Buick was giving away, a large section of tuner cars for the public, and Fiat House on the way home, 3 views of Fiat House. I'm not sure why Fiat thinks that cars and fashion go together that well, but they do clothing and now they do housing. Well, that's all I've got for the moment. I'll just leave you with this image from a prior New York auto show. And for more, try StelPower.com and Motels.com. StelPower has news, Motels has history, stories, insights into the company, talking about people and such like.